Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a pretty massive overdue book unhaul. I have a lot of books on my shelves that I just feel like are not indicative of my reading taste anymore. I did a book shelf tour a few months ago that I'll link above, but it's all gonna be moot now because I am reorganizing. I want to make room for books that are more my taste. As I've said in other videos, I don't buy a whole lot of books. A lot of times I'll read a book from the library, and if I really like it, then I will add it to a wish list and buy it later. So I have a huge stack next to me of books that don't reflect my reading taste, or books that I just don't have the complete series of, and it's not important enough for me to buy the rest of the series. And so I'm just gonna let them move on to a better home. I will go ahead and put the clip of me taking everything off my shelves, and then we will go into all the books I've decided to unhaul. The first group of books are from a coworker's wife. One of my coworker's wives found out that I love to read, and she also loves to read, but we read very different books. But she keeps giving me these books, and I very much appreciate it, but some of them I don't think I will be getting to. So first I have The Consequences of Fear by Jacqueline Winspear. I do not know anything about it, so cool cover though, but not something I feel like I'll be picking up. Then I have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. From what I've heard of this book, not something I'm gonna love. I don't read a lot of contemporary fiction, so not super interested in this. Next I have The Guest List by Lucy Foley, which is a thriller. Again, not super into thrillers, and I've heard mixed reviews on this. Next up is On Turpentine Lane by Eleanor Lipman. I don't know anything about it, but just seems like something I'm not gonna wanna read. Not anything on my priority list. So next up I have Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palparedo. I read this series last year and actually really enjoyed it, but I only own this first book and I don't see myself spending the money on the second and third book and or rereading it. They are YA fantasy, and I'm kind of growing out of YA fantasy as I get older. There's actually a lot of YA fantasy in this unhaul, and that is just because I think that this should be passed along to young adults that will enjoy this series, because I am growing out of YA. Just natural as you get older. Next up I have Flashfire by Tj Cloon. This is the second book in the Extraordinary series. I only have the second one. The third one came out recently. I haven't read it yet. I don't see myself buying the other ones. It's actually a really cute story about this teen boy is obsessed with like these superheroes, like real superheroes. They have real superheroes in this town. And it's just a really cute story. I just don't see myself buying the other ones, and I don't want to just own the second book of a series. Next up, I have The Hazelwood and the Night Country by Melissa Albert. I have read The Hazelwood, and I didn't read The Night Country. They are YA books that are like portal fantasy. It was really cute, The Hazelwood. I just don't see myself reading The Night Country anytime soon, and I might as well pass these on to somebody that will like them more. Next up is a book I bought while I was in England. And I don't know why I bought it, because I'm not interested in it, and that's The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Yeah, I just don't see myself reading it. It's not the type of book I normally read. It was obviously on sale, so that's probably why I bought it. Next up, I have Warstorm and Broken Throne by Victoria Aveyard. This is part of the Red Queen series. It's just these are the only two I own. They're YA fantasy. I won't be rereading them. I actually really liked this series when I read it like 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't see myself rereading it, and I only own the last book and the short story collection, so there's absolutely no point in me keeping this. Next up is another YA series, Furyborn and Lightbringer by Claire Legrand. I don't own the second one. I only own the first and the third, and one is paperback and one is hardback. So again, not worth me keeping. I actually loved this series. This third one came out in 2020, and I remember bawling my eyes out at the end of it. So I highly recommend this series if you're into YA fantasy. It is extremely good. There's a lot of like time travel and stuff in it. It is a really good series. I just don't need to own it. Next up, I have The Hobbit and The Fellowship of the Ring. I just hate these editions, and I just bought a new edition of The Fellowship of the Ring. I got these on Thrift Books, so I just don't need these editions. They're ugly. Next up is a book I got on Book Outlet at the beginning of the pandemic called Circle of Shadows by Evelyn Skye. I bought it because it was cheap. Then I read the reviews and everyone said it was bad. And it's a YA fantasy. Really cool cover, but I do not see myself reading it. Next up, I have Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. I've heard some kind of problematic stuff about Alice Hoffman. Haven't read any of her books. This is a prequel to Practical Magic. I haven't read Practical Magic. Got this on Book of the Month. I had a really long streak of buying books on Book of the Month that I just wasn't interested in, which was just irresponsible of me. So this is one of those, and I won't read it probably. Next up, I have a book that was a huge disappointment, and that was Book of Night by Holly Black. I DNF'd this book. It is her new release, and it is nothing like what I thought it would be, and I thought it was a big disappointment. So I'm going to pass it along to somebody that will like it more than I did. Next up is a series of books that I found a little disappointing as well. Oops! And that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kimmerer. I have the whole series, but I found it a little disappointing. The first book was pretty good, and then the second and third were just buck wild and weird, and didn't love them. This is a YA fantasy series, very well loved, very well known. Just not for me. I won't be rereading it, and I have the full series, so I can give this to somebody that would then get the whole series. So next up, I have Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is a standalone YA fantasy that is actually very good. It's got a library, a magic library with grimoires and stuff. Very good book, but again, YA, growing out of it. Won't be reading it again. It's not a book I feel like I need to reread, so want to pass it on to somebody that will love it. I apologize in advance. Sorry, everyone. I'm gonna unhaul The Name of the Wind. This is technically a coworker's book, but he moved, so it's mine now, and I'm gonna unhaul it. I don't like this book, and I know it is a super well-loved book, so I want to pass it on to somebody that will also love it, because I wish I loved it, but alas, I didn't. So somebody else should read it that will appreciate it more than I did. Next up, I have Electric Idol by Katie Robert. This is part of the Dark Olympus series. The first one is Neon Gods, then there's this one, and then there's Wicked Beauty. This is the second one, and I hated it. And I liked the first and the third, but those are the ones I don't own. So didn't like this one, don't want to own it. Somebody else can read it. It's bad. Next up, I have Realm Breaker and Blade Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. These are another YA fantasy. This one actually just came out, and I had it pre-ordered, and I don't know why I pre-ordered it, because I didn't love the first one, and now I have no interest in reading the second one. That was, again, I'm normally very responsible when it comes to book buying, but here is an example of me being irresponsible, so passing it along. Last up, I have 2 Book of the Month books. First, The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Kristen Hanna wrote The Nightingale, which I loved, and that is the only book of hers I've liked. I've read this one and one other one, and I didn't like them. I thought they were boring. It's not my genre. She writes a lot of historical fiction, and I just didn't like this. I thought it was boring. Not because it's a bad book, just because it's not my taste. And then I have another one of those ones that I bought just because I needed to pick a book for the month, and instead of skipping the month, I just picked a book I didn't think I'd like. And that's The Philosopher's Flight by Tom Miller. And I was right. I didn't like it. It's like a sci fantasy, historical fantasy, I think. I don't remember a lot about it. I remember I didn't like it, so somebody else can have it. I didn't think it was a very good book. So, now that I've created these 2 gigantic stacks of books that I'm unhauling, I am going to take them to little libraries. And I have a bunch of little libraries around me, the little free libraries, so I am going to take these and drop them off, and hopefully people in my community will love them more than I did, or love them as much as I did, because some of these books I did really enjoy. But now I have so much more room for books that better reflect my current reading taste. I have so much room for new books, new releases, loved books that I've read that I just don't own yet, so I'm very happy. I have so much room now for more books. Now that I have dropped off all of these books at the little free libraries, everyone in my community can enjoy them and love them, and I love that. So that is the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you love this video. If you really like my content, please hit the notification bell to be notified every time I post a new video. As always, your support means the world to me, and until next time, thank you guys.